Hey YouTube, welcome back to Locked In Anglers. We're down here at Limited Performance Marine, and Chris Ferry's gonna make sure that we tune up our motors the right way for 2022 season. So let's get at it and let's see what all it takes to get these things ready to go. So we're going to change the engine oil. We're going to get that all taken care of. Then we're going to take care of the lower unit oil, and then we're also going to check and see if there's any line or anything in our props and all that. Make sure everything's all good. Nothing's going to break on us for this season.
All right, so we're here at Limited Performance Marine. I'm here with Travis and Eric today. We're gonna get their boats ready for the season. We're gonna do some oil changes, gear lube changes on their boats, make sure everything's ready to go for the season. This is something, you know, Mercuries are becoming easier and easier for people to do at home. There's just a few things you need to know to get it done. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take the prop off and we're gonna get the gear lube starting to drain. That'll require an 1 1/16" socket, and we'll start there. We're gonna go ahead and take the prop off. Inspect for any line or anything that's twisted up in there. Everything in there looks good. One thing I do see is we are getting a little bit of carbon buildup in here around it. Just need to run some quick clean through it, and it'll help clean that out. Not too bad in the prop. It's not real chalky yet, but it's something we're starting to see. Next thing we're gonna do is get started is we're gonna loosen the gear for the gear lube. Got 2 drain plugs. So we're gonna go ahead and undo the lower one first. We're gonna grab our drain pan, get it set up here. We're gonna go ahead and lower the motor down. And we're gonna go ahead and pull the other screw. This here will get the pressure. It'll actually let it breathe and let it start coming out. It'll be nice and slow. It'll take a little bit. So that's why it's one of the first things you want to do. First thing we're looking for is water coming out, discoloration. It'll look milky if we have a leak. Another thing we want to look for is metal. A lot of people don't know that you won't see metal if you just look at it like this. You take a flashlight, you shine it in there, you can see if there's metal fragments. That gear lube there looks pretty good. It's not burnt. It's got a little bit of metal in it, which is normal. If we start seeing large chunks in it, that's when we need to be concerned. All right, so next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna start, since we already have the gear lube draining, we're gonna go ahead and start draining the oil. 5/8 socket. We're gonna break it loose. I use a tube, and I put it on there. Didn't quite get it enough. Let's go a little bit more. And just unscrew it, and then oil will start to come out.
Now what size is that tube that you have?
That is 1/2 inch. And then that's gonna keep it from getting on the motor. It's gonna make it nice and clean. You got 7 quarts in there, so it's gonna take a little while. So while everything's draining, this is when I go ahead and I switch over and I start to change the filter. All right, so while your oil's draining and your gear lube's draining, you can go ahead and change the filter. 2 different ways you can do it. You can use a filter wrench, or you can use a cup wrench. Either way, doesn't really matter which one you use. If you have this one's probably more readily available for most people. So we're gonna go ahead and just twist it off. There is a catch basin right here that'll catch any extra oil. And you can drain that catch basin right from this plug right here. So the first thing you want to do is make sure A, that the gasket came off with the old filter, and it did. Second, take some new oil and just lube your gasket up, okay? That's gonna keep it from sticking, it's gonna keep it from, give it a better seal. So the next thing we're gonna do is just screw it back on. And everyone thinks you have to wrench down on them. Once that thing starts to get tight, it's pretty good. So hand tight, done. Not super tight. All right, so what we're gonna do now, we got the oil draining, we've changed the filter, we got the gear lube draining. We're gonna pull up the motor on the computer. Fortunately, you can't do that at home. Needs to come to a dealership to see if you have any active faults. We can look at run times, and we can also look at the hours on the motor. So we're gonna go ahead and pull that up. So updated software, it's dealer only, super expensive. That's why people won't purchase it. So it looks like here we have 153.1 hours. We're gonna go ahead and scan the motor. It says we have 0 active faults currently, but we're gonna pull it up anyways and get into the ECM. So we're gonna pull up run history. So this is gonna give us a run history, a breakdown of how he's running the boat, total engine hours, everything like that. So like I said, we have 153.1 hours. We got 59.1 at idle. Just off idle, we have 30 hours. From 1705 to 2789, 8.1. 2970 or 2790 to 3750, we have 17.4. 37 to 43, 12 hours. 43 to 48, 7.1. So the run history is on there. If you're ever buying a used boat or something, you can always, on most models, you can always pull up the run history and get an idea of how the boat was ran. Looks like everything's good here. You know, we don't have any hours over 6,200, which means we're not hitting the rev limiter. So we have everything set pretty well. So no active faults. So we're good to go. All right, so one thing we do here, since we just pulled hours on the motor, I usually write it on the oil filter. That way the customer knows how much time they had on it or when their last oil change was. We'll put it on their work order as well, but most times pieces of paper end up missing. So this will give us a good idea. I always initial my work and I write the date. Then I'm gonna write the hours. That way I know it was done by me, I know the hours that were on it, and the customer, if they're not sure, they can always just take the cowling off and look. All right, so now our oil's drained. We're gonna go ahead and pull the tube, tighten it back up. Just snug, not over tight. That's gonna give us for a fill, and then we're gonna go ahead and fill. So for our fill, it requires 7 quarts for Mercury. 10W30 is what we use. You can use Quicksilver, or you can use the Mercury brand. Same thing, different packaging, doesn't make a difference. All right, so we're gonna fill the gear lube. We use a commercial pump here because we do a lot of them every day. You guys are gonna probably use a single quart at the house and a hand pump if you're doing it from home. Pretty much same concept. We're gonna fill from the bottom hole here, and then we're gonna wait till it comes out the top, and then we're gonna let it sit. So we're gonna go ahead and screw our pump in, and for us, we're gonna go ahead and just open our valve. It only takes 12 ounces on a Mercury on the new Pro XS 4-stroke, so it just takes a few minutes. All right, as soon as we start to get fluid out, you see we got bubbles. So that means there's still air in there. So what we're gonna do is go ahead and just let it sit for a few minutes and just let it breathe. Most people right at that point usually put the plug in. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to wait about 10 minutes, come back to it. All right, so now that we've let it sit for 10 minutes, we're just gonna turn, for us, you know, we're gonna turn it on slow. If you're doing it at home, you're just gonna let it pump up really, really slow until you get just a nice flow, no air. Nice constant flow. We're gonna go ahead and just put our top plug back in. Always use new gaskets. We'll show those to you here in a sec. So the washers always come on the bolt. Always replace these to make sure you get a good seal and then that you don't get water intrusion. So when we go to the bottom, I go ahead and I tilt the motor up a little bit. It helps keep the fluid in there when you go to pull your hose off. We're gonna go ahead and just tighten that down. We're gonna go ahead and just clean everything up. We're gonna spray it down with degreaser. Make sure that the customer goes home with a nice clean motor. All right, so if you look at the prop shaft, it's pretty dry. We use some 2+4C. We're gonna go ahead and lube that up. You always wanna lube your splines for your prop. So don't worry about overdoing it. Just make sure you have a healthy amount on there. Keep everything nice and lubed up. It's gonna help your prop come on and off a little bit easier. And it's gonna save the wear and tear on your splines as well. So we're gonna go ahead and just slide the prop back on. As far as your washers go, big washer first, then you're gonna have a curved washer, flat washer, and then the nut. And we're just gonna screw the nut on by hand, get it down to the nylock. Next thing we're gonna do is torque wrench. So torque wrench is gonna be 55 foot-pounds. For a Mercury, it'll be 110 on a Yamaha. So, block of wood with carpet for us is what we use to help tighten down the prop. That's it. Spin it to the next gear. We're good. All right, so a couple things you do also when it comes in for us. We grease our zerks. This is your steering zerk right here. You go ahead and get that on there. Most people don't grease these enough, and then we see failure in the steering shaft, in the bushings. As you can see, we don't have any grease coming out the top or bottom right now. So now it just got tight. So now I'm starting to see water come out a little bit down here. We should be good. All right, so last thing we do is we always pull the boat out. We're gonna go ahead and start the motor, and then we're gonna let it run for a few minutes, and then we're gonna check the oil level. So always make sure that you have a cup to block the water on the front, and then make sure you have good water going to the pickup.
So now since we ran it, now we're going to check some oil. Make sure it's all at the right level. First you want to pull it all out, just wipe it all, make it all clean. Shove it right back in there. Let it sit for a little bit, then pull it right back out. we'll make sure that these beads have oil all the way up to the halfway mark, which we do. Looks like we got all oil all the way up, which is good. Show it back in, we should be all ready to go for the season. So guys, you see, it's a pretty easy job to do, but I mean, you always have the benefit of taking it to the dealer because they can scan and see other stuff. And so what we like to do, we try and get that oil change done every 50 hours. It says 100 hours, but we do 50 because what's more expensive, a new motor or a $60 or $70 oil change? I mean, there's no problem with you just doing an oil change and saving that motor from blowing up. Protecting all your investments as best as you can.